Okay, folks. Here with the OG Jelpshis holster. Uh, again, two middle-aged black men talking about a whole lot of stuff. Um, you know, but yeah, Averages Failures presents the Cost of a Dream podcast. Um, I got to work on how I say that joke. The Averages Failure Network, the Averages Failure Media Network. Well, it's bigger than that, but the Averages Failure Network, whatever we are, presents the Cost of a Dream podcast. Um, One of the things, if I were to have a subtitle for all of this now, I came up with this last night and I think it makes a lot of sense. But I think the subtitle to all of that is eradicating mediocrity, right? I think that's what we're set out to do, Joe, is to kind of warn people. As a matter of fact, let me grab this real quick because I was writing some notes yesterday as thoughts were coming to my mind. And as you and I already kind of talked about earlier today, that was one of the things that I realized and I settled in on is that, and I was planning to talk about this a little bit later, but I guess I can just push this up to like even right now. My goal, or one of the things I had always tried to do with Averages Failure is to figure out like what is the flip side of that, like what is the positive aspect of that. Like, okay, if average is failure, then what is success, right? And I always has felt like this pressure, and I think in many ways it's one of the things that has kept me stagnant all of these years, is that I was always so focused on trying to figure out, okay, well, what is the positive aspect of that I'm trying to get people to? And I don't know what it was, but something yesterday just helped me to realize like Averages failure is we're the warning company, right? We're the we're the we are the what you call it, we're just trying to tell you what to stay away from, right?
Right.
Where the stop signs and stuff like that you see, the do not enter signs or what have you. At least that's what we are right now. And for some reason, I don't think I was satisfied with that in the past. And maybe it's just my getting older and being a little bit more mature. I've come to the realization that that doesn't have to be a bad thing. There's a place for warning signs. There's a place for something that simply tells you, hey, you're going the wrong way. Turn around. No, we're not the GPS and we're not getting you per se to your destination, but we're going to keep you from going over a cliff, which will, end any possibility of getting to your destination. We're going to at least prevent you from getting into a car accident. I have this concept in my head, but we're going to help you to not turn the ball over so much, Jason Tatum, and you kind of undercut the excellence that people know that you have, because some of it is not always just about. It's not only about the things that you need to be doing. Oftentimes it's also about the things that you need to not be doing.
Right.
And those are the things that tend to not be as flashy, tend to be a bit more hidden, tend to not be as sexy, but often cause the most problems. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? So that's what we're out to do, is to really point out the dangers that are they're subtle dangers, but they are great dangers in mediocrity. Um, and I'll say this one more thing about that, Joe. I also came to this realization yesterday. It's Averages failure, or us trying to help people not to be mediocre in their lives. It doesn't mean that mediocrity in and of itself is a bad thing,
Mhm.
right? I would even say there should be and there always will be, whether you like it or not, way more things that you're mediocre in than there are things that you're great in.
Correct.
As a matter of fact, if you are somehow excellent in more things than you're mediocre in, then you are like God or something like that, right? Because there are an infinite amount of things out there in the world that you could be doing, right? So when you make the choice actually to say, hey, these are the things that are important to me and the things that I'm plan to be excellent in, you are also simultaneously making the choice to say, hey, these other things are going to be mediocre or even terrible.
Right.
That's okay, right? I am a mediocre basketball player, right? I'm even probably a mediocre track and field runner right now. And I was an All-American when I was actually running track and field in high school. It was important to me back then. I love it still. I have a love for it still, but it's not one of the most important things for me right now. Therefore, I am no longer excellent in that thing. Right. And that's okay. So when we say, and I think it was just important to point that out, because we're not trying to say, hey, you just need to be this person that everything you touch turns to gold and you're just excellent, 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 excellent. No. We don't have enough bandwidth for that. It's simply, we're talking about how do we get and define those things that are actually important for us to be pursuing, and to make sure that those things, we do approach those things with excellence and have certain levels of success, and we don't sabotage our ability to have success in those areas. So usually I usually start these conversations off like asking you questions and stuff, but yeah, I kind of went ham and just dove right in there.
I know it's perfectly fine. And I like the fact that you dove in, because I think one of the things that's missing kind of today in our society is those elder statesmen who kind of give us those warnings and those throw up the red flag and kind of let us know, because a lot of people are afraid of the response that they'll get from people not agreeing. And what they do now is they don't say anything at all at times. And we know that's not the best way to handle things, especially when you see somebody going down the wrong road, or you see somebody who has potential and they might not understand how to actually, navigate that potential. So I think it is important to have people in your corner, people that you can listen to. And the beauty about, usually people that are older than you, especially from our generation, is there's a level of respect that we give to those individuals. And even though we might not agree with everything that they say, we will listen and we won't try to argue with them, even if we don't agree with the point. We might not do it, but we don't argue. And I think what's going on now is that, a lot of times, because there's always contention and arguments and debates and whatnot, people just stop talking. And that's where we lose. That's where we lose the exchange of information, the exchange of the wisdom that the elders have. And, now as we continue to, grow older, we're becoming elders in a sense.
So hold on. So hold on. It wasn't enough that we were middle aged.
I know, man. I know. I keep doing that.
Now you got us to elders, bro.
But and the thing about it is, sometimes you brought into elder statesmen before you want to. And just because you're younger, again, doesn't mean that you might be thrust into that stage at a younger age, because guess what? There's a void. There's a void. Sometimes when we look at our family dynamics, there aren't those elder gentlemen there to kind of talk to us about certain things. So, next in line have to kind of figure it out and hopefully pass it on to the next generation. So yeah, I mean, even though, we might be middle age, we are kind of at times the elders, sometimes in the families.
Yeah. I mean, even as you speak about that, and a lot of them aren't around, like, because of incarceration, because of death, or just kind of maybe just lacking the body of knowledge, or what have you. And so just not really even being able to say, hey, I can pass this information along to you, because unfortunately we still do have a lot of people who, even as they've gotten older, the mentality is still, as if they were, young. So yeah, man, that's we talked about it, I think, in the last episode, or one of the episodes that we did, where we were like kind of landing on like mentorship
Right.
a little bit more, but yeah, but I think, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, is be mentors to our brothers and sisters out there, and again, that's predominantly probably going to be Black folks, but I've mentored white folks as well, so the information is the information transcends who we are. It transcends culture, what have you. The application might need to be tweaked, for culture and stuff like that, but the information, this is beyond us. Like, none of the stuff that we end up talking about even on here is stuff that originates with us,
Right.
and especially for those of us, who follow after Christ. And I mean, other people who may believe in another God or what have you as well. But most of us believe that, the information starts with God ultimately. And I mean, hey, you got folks over there giving credit to the universe as well. So that there's still an acknowledgement that all of this information, all of this wisdom that we talk about or what have you, we're not the originators of it.
Right.
But hopefully we can be vessels through which it can be a blessing to those who hear it. But and I've done a lot of work. I'm kind of going back to the original thing that I was saying, or the original reason why I even brought up, the averages failure thing, because that's a lesson in and of itself. The fact that I was able to get to the point where I was comfortable saying, yo, it's okay that some people talk about, is your life, or is what you're doing a lesson or a blessing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a blessing or a lesson. I forgot what the order is. And averages failure at this point in its history and where it started from is about the lesson, but again, whether it was my ego, whether it was my self-esteem, whether it was self-confidence, whatever it was, maybe I was lacking in something, but, I felt like it had to be, no, I got to get to the blessing part, and skipping over the lesson part the whole time. But through some of the hard work that I've done, I'm comfortable being who I am, where I am, what I am, and whose I am, if I could take it to that level, now, to where I can say it's okay that right now where I am is the lesson part.
Right.
Hopefully through the work that we do, we can also eventually get to the blessing part. But even if we don't, there's value in the lesson part, man. There's value, because we see it every day, Joe. You and I see every day folks who can't get to the blessing,
Right,
because they're stuck. Like, we're in the lesson part because of the value of the lesson part, but folks is out here getting killed in the lesson part,
that is true.
And they diving off cliffs and stuff like that. Like, they do going down the matter of fact, Joe, you got to stop me because I'm just talking a lot too. I'll say this though, for some reason, the past couple of months, on multiple occasions, I have seen cars making left turns
Mm-hmm.
onto roads that have a divider.
Mm.
And because of the way
They've been going down the wrong way street, the wrong way.
We getting deep on this, joke, right? The analogy is deep. Yes.
Is that it? So I'm gonna let you go with it.
Kanye, I'm gonna let you finish.
Signage isn't right because
yo.
Or is it the individual themselves not, understanding the road?
I think it's two, and this is why, man, this is beautiful. This is why I think we have to take both as a factor, right? Mm-hmm. And it's usually always some combination of both.
Right.
On the one hand, if we look at the road is just life, and the road is what it is. And we live in a world where the road isn't always clear, right?
Mhm.
And the wrong way actually looks like the right way. You know what I'm saying? And everything in your mind is telling you like, yo, this looks right. And whatever it is, what I've noticed a lot more, even in well, I won't even say it that way. I'm gonna just say what I've noticed a lot more. A lot of these roads don't have great lighting around them,
Right.
especially at nighttime, or they're so wide, some of them, that like you don't even notice that there's a divider. The divider is like pretty discreet. So you're thinking the whole time that, this is the road to go down, and not realizing until you see cars coming at you
Right.
that, because this actually happened to me once, right? I made the left lane and I made the left and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm good. And now I'm seeing cars coming toward me. I'm like, now luckily I had done it at a time where the cars were so far off and I was able to veer off into a road real quick, wait until I got some clearance and then make the correction. But this car that I had seen, one of the cars I had seen, was driving with cars coming at it and diving, like having to go around stuff. Like, it could have been a disaster.
Mhm.
Now, look, I wear glasses, right? So who knows if that person's vision, or also maybe so the road is one thing, but their vision, their experience, how long have they been driving,
Right.
to kind of be aware and think of these things in advance, right? This is why we're doing some of this, is because it's like, hey, we've seen some roads. So hopefully we can share some insights, some things to consider, so that if you do come up, to this situation, you don't have to jump on the wrong side of the road, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I think
so
it's
yeah.
also important too is when you do recognize that you're going down the wrong road, how do you respond? Because that's a big key. Because like you
Man,
said,
that's good, Joe.
we
That's good.
all have made those turns where we went down the road. Like I've done it too, in certain places, in real life. And your reaction time and how quickly you respond and how you can
Mhm.
process things really does make a big difference in
Yeah.
the outcome of things, because it could be fatal.
Mhm.
It could be just a
Yeah.
minor accident.
Yeah.
But if you don't respond in enough time, and some people are so gun ho on being different,
Mhm.
they're fine with going the opposite way when everybody's going
Mm.
this way. And
Mm.
that works in certain aspects. Certain aspects is not probably the best thing to
Yeah.
do. So your reaction time and being able to see the warning signs, like you can kind of tell, wait a minute, something is off here.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Sometimes you get that, as they say, the intuition or inkling, like, okay, wait a minute, something is wrong.
Yeah.
And guess what? It might not be a car coming at the moment, but you know that, hey, you know what? I
Mhm.
see a sign and it's showing that I'm supposed to be going the other way.
Mhm.
What am I going to do about it?
Mhm.
And I think, as individuals, part of, um, this whole thing that we're doing is saying, you know what, we've went down some roads.
Mhm.
We've been through life a little bit. And you know what, these are the things that we've seen that might be beneficial to somebody else. And these are the things that we're seeing right now because we
Mhm.
haven't went through everything yet.
Yeah.
And we want people to be able to, hopefully recognize, if they're going the wrong way,
Mhm.
and learning what direction that they should be going or that they want to go. Because sometimes
Yeah.
people, I tell people a lot of times, especially in career choices, like, obviously you have your purposes and your passions, but a
Mhm.
lot of times you can be good at the wrong thing,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
you know,
Mhm. Mhm. Break it
and
down for us a little bit. Talk about it. Talk about it.
so there, it obviously I'm gonna use a simple one.
Mhm.
I'm gonna use something simple. Like, let's say you're in, illegal narcotics or something, and you actually make good money doing it.
The
Selling
street pharmacy.
street pharmacists. you know, you can be good at it, but it's not the right thing for you to
Mhm.
do. The
Mhm.
other part about this too is you can actually be doing something legal
Mhm.
in a profession, making good money, but that's not really your purpose.
Mhm. Mhm.
Sometimes our purpose is in the things that we sometimes can't even make money off of.
Yeah.
Because I think we've gotten into this culture right now where we believe that,
That's deep.
you know what, that
That's deep.
if it's my purpose, I have to be able to make money off of in some way, shape, or form.
Ooh.
Is that always the truth?
Because, and I'm gonna do a better job of like taking notes as we discuss, because this is good. This is good information. You know, I hope folks who listen take notes, because what you just said is that we live in a society where that has tried to define your purpose by what makes you money.
Correct.
You're absolutely right. And now we're not here to say that money isn't something that you have to consider as a responsible person, but money can't be everything. And there are some things for some folks to do that, yeah, you might not make any money. Matter of fact, you might lose some money on it, but it is a contribution that you need to be making to the world.
Right.
You know, in the most responsible way that you can. And it's so funny because a lot of the people, man, come on, we dropping gems, man, on this show, because to some extent, this is the best example I can use. We would all agree that Martin Luther King lived out his purpose, right? But can we understand and appreciate that him living out his purpose meant that, and he literally called it out right before his death, saying, I wish I could live a long life. I may not be able to, though, because of the work that I'm doing and because of the purpose I'm fulfilling in the work that I'm doing. It's going to make some folks upset.
Right.
All right. We don't ever talk about, we have gotten up to a place in society where purpose means winning all the time. Means it's going to be lucrative. And yet and it's funny though, because we celebrate all the people who actually lost in the line of fulfilling their purpose. You know what I mean? So and you know, it's not my hope is that that nobody will have to lose their life or that lose their possessions or anything like that. But the reality is that we're talking about sacrifice to some extent.
Right.
You know,
as parents, we kind of know that, you know, firsthand, like,
yeah,
you go to, you have a career, you go to work, but you're giving to your children. And the thing that you receive back from them is not monetarily. It is the love. It's the lessons that you kind of are able to impart in them. But, you know, there's not supposed to be this direct, I deposit financially into you and I get, you know, a financial return, like a normal investment. Like you might get it on the back end with your child being a upstanding citizen that has a career and that, you know, when you get old, they want to be around you and take care of you. But it's not, you know, again, that's a long-term investment right there. And it doesn't always yield immediate results. And that's the one thing, you know, even with, you know, having these conversations is that, you know, everything might not resonate right now in the moment. Yeah. Just like what our parents used to tell us, used to give us the lessons and talk to us about something and say, you ain't gonna understand it now, but when you get kids, you'll get it. You understand it. Planting the seeds. And that's one of the things that, you know, I know me and my wife had a recent conversation about planting seeds, and just the hardest thing for a lot of people to do is be the seed planter and not see it harvest. Because that's not natural for us. We want to plant the seed and we want to see it harvest at the end of the day. We want to see what it's really going to become. And you might not always see that all the time. But are you okay with just being the seed planter and just going around, and that's your ministry at times?
Yeah. And I think ultimately, and I think you said it and I couldn't have said it better, but this is what this is, y'all. Average's Failure is a ministry. You know, this show, The Cost of a Dream, you know, is a ministry. And I think one of the reasons why, and let's keep it real, I think one of the reasons why some of the success that I should have had with this earlier on when I started this kind of 10 years ago, right? Some of the success I should have had with it, I didn't have because I started trying to think about it within the context solely of a business. How is this going to be financially lucrative, or what have you? And I think that to some extent I lost the fact that, you know what, this thing is valuable for me to do, whether or not I can do it for money or not. And so I think that I missed out on some things that God could have done through me, even during that time. And it's not that he still hasn't allowed me to be a blessing and to be blessed during that time. And it doesn't mean that I still wouldn't have experienced difficulties that through that time. No, that's not what we're saying. But what I'm saying is, in many ways, I somewhat had forgotten what the purpose of this was even about. You know what I'm saying? And so I experienced stagnation because of it. But you also say there's so many metaphors that we're throwing back and forth too, man, because even what you talked about with the planting seeds, because that literally, even when we talk about that, you're talking about dying, you know what I'm saying? You're talking about being buried under the dirt. You know what I mean?
Not getting any recognition, not getting any, I mean, you don't get direct sunlight.
Yeah, right.
But sunlight is still needed for it to grow.
Right.
Yeah.
And this that shoot, and this ties back into what I've been talking about all week, and I'll tie this into the last thing that I wanted to talk about as well, this week, which is we're talking about legacy as well, right? And it's funny because legacy, it was a discussion on legacy that Eric Thomas did back in 2011. That was the original ignition for me to go down this route that I've been going ever since that summer night in 2011. All right. And it's so funny because this past weekend, and I'm connecting this to what we're talking about with being buried, a seed being planted and buried in the dirt, because what we're talking about is that seed is being planted, but the legacy is the flower and the fruit eventually that comes of it, but like you said, that there's no guarantee that you will be able to be the one to see it. Hopefully we're blessed to be able to, but it's not a guarantee. But we know that it's still important. And I was reminded of legacy, and it was being reminded of legacy that brought back that clarity for me this week when me and my wife went to visit some of her friends in Atlanta. And I literally saw Black excellence. They are celebrating, birthdays and stuff like that. And it was a milestone birthday for them. And I can talk about it in terms of material things, only because that just makes it clearer. But it's not about the material things. I hope everybody gets that. But just the house that they were in, I looked and said, wow. And also me knowing who their parents are as well, and the legacy that they started from, and that how that translated down now to, my wife's friends who have taken that family legacy just a little bit further. But then the thing that hit it off for me, and when I say y'all, we talk about a house where some of the bedrooms were maybe bigger than, it's not even just a bedroom. It's a owner's suite. And the owner's suite being bigger than some people's whole homes, some people's whole apartments, right? The cars that I saw there, put it this way, a Benz would have seemed average in the context of the other vehicles that were there, right? So again, it's not about the money though, right? I was looking at the children that were there, and I was like, man, this is where they're getting to start. These are Black folks, okay? These are Black folks. And guess what? These are Black folks. Nobody knows who they are. They don't got no huge social media accounts. They're not here flaunting anything in front of anybody, right? They're just here saying, hey, I'm putting in the work behind the scenes to leave a legacy for my children and to create opportunities and partnerships amongst my people so that we level up individually as a community and even beyond that.
Right.
And so it just got me back to thinking about what we're trying to do here again. And I'll say this and then I'll shut up because I've done a whole lot of talking. I think one of the most important things that I was reminded of this past week, Joe, again, average is failure. I had started thinking about it beyond. I was like, okay, well, how's this going to make money or what have you? And so I was like, okay, also what's the problem that I'm trying to solve? I'm here trying to, say, all right, well, maybe I want to teach people how to do business, or maybe I want to teach people how to, find a job, or workforce development. Like, what am I doing? And I think I was onto something when we spoke last about leadership,
Mhm.
because I think leadership is just a representation, I think, to some extent, of we're trying to build people. And I think I lost sight of that even. And, it can be applied to business. It can be applied to workforce development. It can be applied to a bunch of different things. But I think it's sports, anything. But ultimately, I think we're trying to build healthy Blacks, especially, people who can then build healthy families, healthy communities, and a healthy Black society. Um, and in hopes that, the health will also include wealth as
Mhm.
well.
Right.
But ultimately just experiencing all that God has created us to be, man. And so, yeah, man, I just felt, I said a lot, but I literally was feeling all of that in my heart this week, man. I had to just get it out.
Yeah, and the one thing I think that, because I know we were talking about this earlier, and you
Mhm.
text me, you know, um, about, just making sure that you would like remind me to tell you
Mhm,
about this house that I'm in.
mhm. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, and I think the one thing that like you kind of hit on the head was, family, and then what the construct of the family is.
Mhm,
Um, you know, it's mother, father, children,
mhm,
and making sure that people kind of really, be intentional about, making that a priority.
mhm,
Because I think